Good evening, everyone. Welcome at the Kosciuszko Foundation. My name is Eba Setharna. I'm Director of Cultural Affairs here. And I want to thank you all very much for coming and joining us tonight for the evening dedicated to the unknown Polish Oscar winners. This event and the theme of this presentation is definitely not a coincidence. The Academy Awards ceremony this coming Sunday. However, when we planned together this event, we could not predict the 3 Oscar nominations for The Cold War by Paweł Kowalski, which makes this event even more relevant. And of course, fingers crossed for the Oscar for the Polish movie. And should Cold War by Paweł Kowalski receives any Oscar in any category, it received the nomination, so we will be able to say that this is a very known Polish Oscar. As the Cold War received very deserved recognition, attracts spotlight, it has a momentum, and much is being talked about this movie. And should Paweł Kowalski or Łukasz Żalku are nominees for this year's Oscar, should they receive the award, they will join Andrzej Wajda, Roman Polański, Janusz Kamiński, Jan Kaczmarek, and few other Poles who are on the list of the Polish Academy Award winners, which we can find in Wikipedia. However, as it turns out, there are more Polish Oscar winners than the Wikipedia says, and than we even realize. And tonight we have a pleasure to host a man who knows almost everything about Poles in Hollywood and whose almost entire professional life is dedicated to studying, researching, and contributing to the development of the media industry. Professor Andrzej Krakowski, who is the person in question, I'm sure needs no introduction here, and this I'm sure most of you know him very well, but for the purpose of this introduction, let me just briefly say that he is a graduate of the renowned Polish National Film School in Łódź, Poland, and very early in his career he received a scholarship to come to Hollywood. And because of the political events in Poland in March 1968, it turned out that he spread his wings here on this side of the Atlantic Ocean. Professor Krakowski is an award-winning film producer, screenwriter, director. He's an author of several books, including Hollywood, which treats on Poles in Hollywood. His production of TV series We Are New York won 2 Emmy Awards. And he's currently a tenured professor and former chair of Media and Communications Art Department at the City College, New York, CUNY, where he teaches film directing, production, and screenwriting. But above all, Professor Krakowski is absolutely fantastic, superb, and wonderful storyteller. Therefore, I know that these chairs might not be as comfortable as the ones in the movie theater, but nonetheless, please make yourself comfortable and enjoy the presentation about the unknown Polish Oscar winners by Professor Andrzej Krakowski. Welcome and thank you.
My mother-in-law, that by the way would have been this year 100, but she passed away 6 years ago. Every time about this time of the year, she would say to us, as soon as the Oscars were announced, the awards were announced, she would say, what happened? Why this film, why did it win? There were better films. And I kept telling her, a little bit like, like every Passover at the Seder table, we have the same 4 questions, like we didn't learn, right? I would say, Halinko, because this is not an award for popularity. This is not the audience's award. This is an award of the film industry. This is a film community, and it doesn't work that way. So what you're going to see, I'll be throwing a lot of slides on the screen here, started actually 5 years ago. After Ida received its Oscar, I got a call from a young lady working for PiS. Do not confuse it, or maybe you should confuse it with peace. PiS is a Polish National Film Institute, which also totally controls the funding of the movies in Poland. And this young lady said, I got a request, or I was appointed to organize an exhibit about Polish Oscar winners. So I said to her, I said, well, okay, then tell me how this exhibit is going to look. So she said, oh, we're going to have 8 kiosks, like the one that were in Warsaw before the war, after the war, and we're going to plaster it with posters. And I said, how many? She says, 8. Well, I knew where we were at that point. I said, so tell me who is going to be on those, on those posters. So she says, well, we're going to start with Polanski's Knife in the Water. So I said, wait a minute. Polanski's Knife in the Water did not get an Oscar. It was the first Polish film nominated for a foreign language film after the war, and before the war too, because there were, there was a first Polish nomination. But it didn't win. Granted, Polanski won 2 Oscars for The Pianist much later. But I said, so who do you have? And at that point, she read the names. She read those 7 names: Roman Polanski, Zbigniew Rybczyński, Alan Starski, Ewa Braun, Andrzej Wajda, Jan A. Kaczmarek, Paweł Pawlikowski. And between the 7 of them, they won 8 Oscars. And I said, well, then tell me about your criteria. What makes them Polish Oscar winners? Because that totally confused me. You see, Roman Polanski was not born in Poland. He was born in France. He spent most of his life in France. He came to Poland when he was 6 years old, shortly before the World War II, and emigrated back to France in the late 50s, actually 1959. In his very rich and distinguished career, he only made 1 feature film in Polish. It was Knife in the Water. And he's considered a Polish director. Well, why? Because he considers himself a Pole. So I started to think, when I started to ask those questions, and I said, listen, there are many, many, many more Poles who won Oscars. She says, her answer was stunning. She says, I don't have time. I have 3 weeks to do it. Maybe next time. Thank you very much. She hung up. So I started to think, what is it that some directors, some filmmakers are considered Polish directors, Polish filmmakers, and some other not. So here we have Polanski. First I thought, maybe there is an issue with national. Well, I don't even know how to address it because it's not nationality, it's not ethnicity. Polanski is Jewish. Alan Starski is Jewish. Okay, but Janusz Kamiński, who won 2 Oscars, who doesn't live in Poland, is not even mentioned. And he's not Jewish. So it's not the ethnicity. What else it could be? And I really don't know. This is something that keeps puzzling. It's very puzzling for me. Later, in actually two magazines, in newspapers, Rzeczpospolita, and in Newsweek, Polish edition of Newsweek, I read again the same list with Leopold Stokowski. That confounded me even more. Leopold Stokowski was born in London. To the best of my knowledge, he never put his foot in Poland, and he's considered Polish. So I started to analyze. I went all the way back and started to look at it. How did it all happen? And so I started to count. I made a list, and lo and behold, I found out that there is over 60 Polish Oscars. Where it comes from, a lot of them comes from, I guess, lack of knowledge. I don't want to say ignorance, but in a sense it is. We don't know who gives this award. We don't know what rules are employed, used. So let's walk it through. Okay, and by the way, I'll do it, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A if you have any questions. So the origins. Okay, in the year 1926, Louis B. Mayer had a problem. But who was Louis B. Mayer? Louis B. Mayer at that time was the president of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, which is ironic of its own because Goldwyn, who had nothing to do with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer except his name, you know, on the door, was also born in Poland, but he had nothing to do with MGM. Mayer, meantime, who was running the studio, and at that time was the highest paid executive in the entire country. I'm talking about the man who in 1920s were making over $1 million a year. Okay, didn't own even one share of the studio. He was never an owner. So, but his problem was that 1920s, 24, 25, 26 was the period of unionizing Hollywood. And all the smaller producers have been unionized. And that didn't bother him. It didn't bother him until he decided, he had two daughters, who said, Daddy, he said, we want a beach house. So you might wonder how is that related to the unions, right? So he hired architects, and they came back with the plans, and they said it will take them a year to 2 years to build the house. And he says, wait a minute, you know, I'm stupid. Studios were sprawling enterprises. They had under contract not only creative side, or creative trade, you know, actors, directors, screenwriters, composers, but carpenters, bricklayers, they were building sets. So he called his favorite set designer, Cedric Gibbons, who will come back in this conversation a couple of times. And he says, my daughters want a beach house. He says, and I don't want to wait until the summer's over. So Gibbons brought a head of construction from MGM, a gentleman whose name was Joe Cohen. And he says, I can build it in 6 weeks, but I have a problem with the union. So if the union will find out that we're building your house, we're going to be in trouble. So they quickly built it, but at that point, Louis B. Mayer decided that there is a power in numbers. So he contacted all the other studio heads who were still not unionized, and they said, we should create an organization that's going to be representing the entire industry, and the organization as such is going to be negotiating with the unions. So he started the process. First, he invited 6 people to his newly finished. It was December 24th, 1926, when he invited 6 people to his beautiful mansion on the beach in Los Angeles. And there was a director, Fred Niblo. There was a head of the Producers Association, Frank Bitson, and Cedric Gibbons. And he said, this is what I'm going to throw a dinner. We're going to invite people. We're going to start this new organization. So what did they start it with? They started with, by the way, the dinner was held on January 11, 1927. And what did they start it with? Look, with menu. And this is what they decided, that for the menu, they're going to serve jumbo squid Perigo, lobster Eugenie, salad Los Angeles, terrapin steak, okay, and a fruit salad supreme. And for $100, you can have a dinner and you can join a new organization. Who wouldn't do it? Come on. I know $100 then were tremendous amount of money. But this is where it started with. 2 daughters and an empty stomach. So on January 11, 36 guests joined, and there were 7 actors, 6 directors, 6 writers, 3 technicians, 12 producers, equality, right? 12 producers and 2 lawyers. So for this $100, they became first members of the new academy, but they didn't know how this academy is going to be yet named. Ironically, the 34 guests were members, and the 2 lawyers were special members. They didn't have the same right. Here on this picture, you see Louis B. Mayer, you see Nicholas Skank, who was the head of Fox at that time, but the first president of the academy, unnamed academy, was Douglas Fairbanks Jr., who is sitting in the middle. So, so then they started to work on the name. Originally, what Mayer suggested was that the new academy is going to be called International Academy of Motion Pictures, with an S, Arts and Sciences. And they decided on January 11. For 4 months, the special members, 2 lawyers, were arguing how, and finally they dropped the international, even though it was very ironic because most of the founders were born outside of the United States. Actually, 3 were born in Poland. And officially, and then somebody said that, this arts and sciences, people might think that people like Albert Einstein might join us. So they changed and registered officially on May 4th, 27 as an Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And that's what we have today. So now, initial membership was 231 guests. Today, we have the membership is approximately about 7,500. It will be important later. I want to read you just statistics. So in 2014, the Los Angeles Times did a research. So the median age of the members were 62 years. 14% of the members were younger than 50 years old. 94 were white. 77% were men. It's not a big diversity, isn't it? So now, what does it take to become a member? Again, it was all negotiated. That originally, Louis B. Mayer decided that he personally will decide who can become a member or not. And they argued. So finally, today's rules read that Academy membership is limited to film artists working in the production of theatrically released motion pictures. Look at the wording, okay? If you made a small film and that was never shown in a film, you will not get there. That doesn't count. It has to be theatrically released motion picture. It doesn't say whether it's going to be a feature film, documentary, but it has to be theatrically released, and we'll get to it in a moment. The Academy membership process is by sponsorship. You have to find 2 members who will sponsor you to become a member. I'll come back to it because when we get back to different branches. However, if you get an Oscar nomination, you automatically qualify. So then the nominees are sent from the branches to the Board of Governors, and then the board decides who will get an official invitation. Now, look at the award, the famous award. The first, it was designed by Cedric Gibbons, the same guy who built Louis B. Mayer House, and who later won 11 times. No nepotism. it is 13.5 inches tall. It weighs 8.5 pounds. And the materials is a Britannium, which is 92% tin, 6% stibnite, also known as antimony, and 2% copper, plated with 24-karat gold. Now, what it is, as you see, it's a knight holding a sword, standing on a reel of film. What the hell he had against it, I don't know. Why he had to punch it with, you know. But if you look at it, there are 5 openings in this reel. Why? Because there were 5 branches of the academy. So the style is Art Deco. I told you already about what it is made of and what it represents. Currently now are 17 professional branches, and those branches are being added and added and added. Base of it is a wood covered with black lacquer. Until 2016, it was manufactured in Chicago by R.S. Owens. Now it's done here in New York. Actually, it's very close to where we live because it's in Putnam County, actually. And even there, so who is the head of polyctalics in New York area? Adam Demchak. Also, some Polish roots. We're not going to run away from it. It takes 10 days to make one Oscar. Also, the worth of just the statuette is between $400 to $1,000, depending on the price of the elements, of the components. Now, here's some trivias. Okay, was it always made that way? No. For example, in 1938, there was actually Oscar made of wood, and was given to Edgar Bergen, father of Candice Bergen, as an honorary Oscar for his ventriloquist dummy, Charlie McCarthy. So here's the Oscar. Charlie is sitting there with the Oscar in his hand. It was made of wood. Shirley Temple presented Walt Disney with a special honorary award for Snow White and 7 Dwarfs that took the form of 7 tiny Oscars. During World War II, to save precious copper and the other metals, the statuette was made of plaster, with the understanding that after the war, when the materials become available and they can come back and they can exchange it for the proper Oscars. So here's a couple of, this is how the James Stewart as Best Actor plaster Oscar looked in 1941. He's there with Ginger Rogers, who also got a plaster Oscar. This is Bing Crosby with his plaster Oscar for Going My Way. You can see they look slightly different, but now, ironically, there were also juvenile Oscars, which were smaller, and they were 12 of them awarded over 25 years. So, and they were the size of children, 50% smaller than the regular Oscars. Now, the award itself has no cash component. Does it? Or doesn't it? There's no cash coming with an award. But a nomination in major categories worth about additional $25 million, at least $25 million from the box office. And the win, around 50. So that's why everybody fights for it. There's money. But there's actually an interesting anecdote, because in 2000, the entire shipment of Oscars were stolen on the way from Chicago to Los Angeles. Lo and behold, somebody found them. The guy's last name was Full Gear. I love it because it's like he must have been a truck driver. Full Gear, And he went to the academy. He says, "I have it." So I said, "Well, please return." He says, First you have to, because the academy announced that they're going to give a $50,000 reward for returning those Oscars. So he had more. He didn't want 50,000. He says 50,000 and 2 tickets to the ceremony. So now we know that the Oscar actually does have certain value. And ironically, there is still one left plaster Oscar not exchanged. It is in Australia. Every year, the Academy is trying to contact the man. They're waiting until he dies, but that's not going to change anything. So he's stubborn. History of the name Oscar. For the first 5 years, the award didn't have a specific name. It was what you have here: Academy of Motion Picture, Arts and Sciences, Award of Merit for Outstanding Achievement. It didn't have a name. So where did the name come from? Well, there are different the different stories. One of them is that Betty Davis claimed that statuette's butt reminded her of the rear side of her second husband, whose name was Harmon Oscar Nelson. He was a band leader, famous musician. Margaret Herrick claimed that she had a cousin named Oscar. Eleanor Lilleberg, who was Norwegian, and she was Louis B. Mayer's secretary, claimed that the statuette figure reminded her King Oscar II of Norway. In memoirs and in the biographies of Louis B. Mayer, there is actually quite a bit written about it, that she was supposedly first who uttered that word. That when he walked into the office after Oscar ceremony, she said to him, "What am I supposed to do with these Oscars?" So put them in a safe, But the first one who actually used the name Oscar in print was a journalist, a columnist, Sidney Skolsky. So, okay, now the ownership, originally the ownership was, once it was given to an artist, it became property of the artist. At a certain point, the Academy reversed it because all of a sudden people were selling it. You could find them on the market. So they agreed. So before you accept an Oscar, 2 nights from now, on Sunday, they have to all agree that in case that they cannot sell it, that the only way they can, if they want to dispose of it, they have to return to the Academy and for $1. There was a precedent. There were actually 2 precedents. One of them was Harold Russell, who in 1992 needed money and sold his Oscar, but because he got it before 1950, the restriction didn't apply to him. So there was nothing that Academy could do. Here are the rules. Then they get interesting, complex. First of all, the film must be shown in at least 1 commercial theater. None of the private screenings, none of the special screenings. It has to be shown in the greater Los Angeles in a commercial theater. It has to be shown between January 1st and December 31st of the given year. It has to be advertised in paid papers. So the freebies that we get at the supermarkets don't count. So the distributor has to spend money on advertising. It has to be shown 3 times a day for at least a week, and one of the showing has to be in the evening hours between 6 and 10. Now, there were times when the producers would just come in and did something which is called forewarning. What is a forewarning? You go to the manager of the theater, you offer him X amount of dollars, and you say, I'll take over this theater for a week. Let's say I'll pay you 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, whatever it is, you know, and whatever I make is mine. And then it didn't matter whether anybody showed up. So the Academy got smarter, and they said, okay, now the management of the cinema, of the theater that's running has to actually, it has to be verified and notified, and has to be notarized statement of how many tickets were sold. Now, the full-length feature must be at least 40 minutes long. That's easy. Documentary, animation, and foreign language films have different rules and submission dates. You see, the submission dates for the Academy, for the foreign films and documentary animation is actually the beginning of September. It's no longer end of the year. We'll get to it when we get to nomination, how the process works. So, okay, here are the categories. And this is why so many people stay unknown. So we have the Best Picture category, which goes to the producer. We have a directing award. We have 4 acting awards, right? The best role, male, female, and two supporting roles. We have screenwriting, also 2 awards. There used to be more, but now there's 2. It's original screenplay or adaptation. Believe it or not, in 1920s and beginning of 1930s, they were also giving awards for the best title. We have cinematography, we have music, 3 awards. We have for scoring, we have for song, and in song, you have the best song, best scoring, and best, now I have a senior moment, but there are 3. Now we have animation, long and short, which is a feature and a short animation. Production design, also 2 awards, is the production designer and art director. We have for costumes, editing, sound editing nowadays, and sound recording. And we have a makeup and hair. They didn't divide it yet. It's a matter of time. We have special visual effects. Documentary films have 2 awards. They have short and feature length. And we have a short subject, which is narrative. We have a foreign language film. Then we have an Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award. This is the award. This is, I mean, as much as Oscars are important, okay, the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award is the highest, I don't know, it's what is the highest award the highest medal in the United States? Huh? So Medal of Honor, okay. This is, and we'll get to that later on as well. Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award. Jean Hersholt was a Danish, was a Danish actor. He did a lot of work for the community, for the film community. He created a home for the retirement home. He created a special health care system for the members of the film community in Los Angeles. So this is the humanitarian award. We have honorary Oscar, and we have a special Oscar. Well, special Oscars were like the juvenile Oscars that I just showed you, that were only 12 given. And that can change. Actually, the Academy can create the rules as they go. Well, the best example is of what just happened, that they made a rule that 4 of the crafts will be shown during the commercial breaks. The revolution started, they backed off. You know, everything is being negotiated, and everything is going, you know, it's a process. Then you have scientific and technical awards. The film is probably the fastest changing industry I've ever seen. Literally, I mean, for me to teach film, to teach technology, I refused. I do not teach anymore technology because if I teach it on the first semester, by the time the student graduates, what I taught him 2-3 years ago is already obsolete. It's so quickly. So this is what Gordon E. Sawyer Award is more specifically not to new, it is not oriented towards new developments in technology, but specific camera grip equipment. John Bonner Award is also technical award. Then you have honorary mentions and other. And other could be anything. So nominations. Who selects the nominees? Well, the branch selects five nominees. So the editor branch selects 5 editors. Directors branch, 5 directors. Cinematographers branch, 5 cinematographers. So in my mind, this actually is the purest and the most important award, the nomination. Why? Because it's your peer recognition. Once the nominations the selections have been made and announced, then everybody votes. Then it goes to everybody who is allowed to vote, which is about, right now there's 750,000 roughly members, so there's about 6,500 people who can still vote. Most of those people don't even see these films. This is where politics gets in. This is where, where all of a sudden, now it's a little tiny, it changed because now everything is streaming. But when we were still working in a DVD era, you would get a set of DVDs and they would deliver to your door. And not only that, but oh, since I'm here, here's a bottle of champagne from the distributor, or a nice leather jacket, or a Waterman pen, or. So it is, so the voting is already, it is already subject. It's under the influence of marketing, budget. I happen to have, the film I produced was nominated in 1976. It was called California Reich. And I could not convince my bosses, the owners of the company I was working with, that we should put them. I begged them. They said, no. Listen, they are people, they're artists. They'll know what's good. And we lost. And the film that won that year was a man who skied down Mount Everest. Okay? So it was a Japanese film, but don't ask me how many people got new skis out of it, how many people got boots, sticks, jackets, and everything. We lost because we didn't put any money into the distribution, into the marketing. Now, if we want to learn marketing, there's one company. I know this name is not popular right now, but these are the Weinstein brothers. Harvey and Bob Weinstein, for many years, they have pretty much dominated the market, the awards. They knew how to play that game. They figured out. They approached this like a general going into the battle. This is the goal. This is how we're going to get there. And they worked tirelessly, and they spent enormous money, and it paid off. So this is okay. Now there was also until 1936, actually, there was something which is called a writing. That when the nominations were sent out, the gremium could say, I don't like those nominations. There's a man who made, or a woman, or an artist who was better than what they selected. So there were actually cases where there were added nominations, but the only writing Oscar winner was Hal Moore for Best Cinematography. He was not nominated. He was written in during the voting process. The first Academy Awards took place on Thursday, May 16, 29. Now, why did I put all this stuff? To show you how small that industry was at that time. If you look at this, in actors category, there were 4 nominations, but only 2 actors. So 2 actors each. They each got 2. One, actually, Emil Jannings got 3 no, 2 nominations, and what's his name was Farnham, got 2 nominations. Actress, Janet Gaynor, there were 3 actresses, but 5 nominations, but only 3 actresses. Louise Dresser, actually, this was something I found tantalizing, or titillating, I should say, was that Louise Dresser played a Polish woman, so even then there was a Polish element in it, in the film Ship Comes In. So now the craziest thing happened was with the directing. Because the votes were counted, the winners were contacted, and then the Academy called Louis B. Mayer, and they said, that King Vidor actually won the Academy Award, was the best picture, the best director. And Louis B. Mayer said, forget it, he's not getting it. He's in the studio I'm the head of, they're gonna say it's nepotism, find somebody else. So then they selected Frank Borzage, and I can imagine how King Vidor must have felt that night when they called him and said, sorry, your boss said you can't get it, So that changed, and from the following year, nobody knew who was, that it was, nobody, there was no advanced advising of who was the winner. There was sealed envelope open in front of everybody for the transparency. Okay, the first Polish Oscar, the first nomination came to Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney, great actor, was born in Lwów. Okay, first winner, however, was Max Factor. And he was born in Zduńska Wola. But look at what Max Factor was famous for. So he got an honorary Oscar. Now, for what? There was no branch for him. Makeup was just started, so they gave him for the development of incandescent light. Why? Because he created the makeup that didn't run under the heat, under the high temperature. So he was our first Polish-born Oscar. Paul Mooney was born in Lwów. Okay, nobody in Poland, nobody talks about him. Like he never existed, and he was one of the most famous actors of his time. If you would ask, probably nowadays I don't know, but the generation of Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, and so on, who was their model? Who was their idol? I'm sure they would tell you Paul Mooney. He was the first actor chameleon. So Paul Mooney won in '36 for The Story of Louis Pasteur. The following year, another Paul, who was born in Międzychód, Heinz Harald, won for the best screenplay, The Life of Emile Zola, who was playing him, Paul Mooney. And so interesting anecdote was that Paul Mooney went to the Warner Brothers. He was with the Warner Brothers. And he figured out he had so many nominations and he already won. So he figured out he can demand certain treatment. So he went actually to Jack Warner and he says, I want to make a film about Beethoven. Okay, so what was Jack, the infamous response? Who the hell wants to see the movie about blind composer? Blind composer. Here is something very interesting, Fred Zinnemann. I had the pleasure and honor of knowing him, spending some time with him. He has won 5 Oscars. He's probably the only director that ever won 5 Oscars for directing. He was born in Rzeszów. Until about 3 years ago, he was totally unknown in Poland. My wife and I, we were in Poland when we got a call from a journalist, Cezary Kasak, in Rzeszów. And he says, I understand that you knew Sam Spiegel, who was from Yarosław. Can you tell me more about it? I'm writing an article. I said, if you're in Rzeszów, why are you writing about Spiegel in Yarosław? You had Fred Zinnemann. Who? Fred Zinnemann. So Kasak rolled up his sleeves. He went to the archives, and he found everything. We found his birth certificate, where his parents lived, where his grandparents lived, when he left Rzeszów for Vienna. He lived in Rzeszów for almost 10 years. And by the way, when he and Bronisław Kaper, who will appear here shortly, when they saw each other, they were calling each other Polaks. They were referring to each other, Polak, 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 and I didn't believe it at the beginning. But now I'm working actually on Bronisław Kaper on a book, and I found the stenograms from the conversations that he recorded in oral history, and that's how he is referring to Zinnemann. Harry Warner. 3 out of 4 Warner brothers were born 35 kilometers or 40 kilometers from Warsaw in Krasnoślęsk. We went there. There's nothing left. Actually, there's a little synagogue that is now used as a magazine of, as a warehouse for what's the name? The fertilizers. And he got, again, there was no category at that time. So they gave him for productions of short subject films, but specifically for the animation, for the Looney Tunes, I guess. Here's another person, totally unknown. He got a technical Oscar, but he was one of the greatest set designers, production designers that ever lived. He was born in Kiełbasin. He came from a Polish noble family, with landed gentry, and he created the machine that you don't have to go to the sea. In 1940, you don't have to go to the beach. You could shoot the waves right in your swimming pool in Paramount and then in studio. Here's this famous Leopold Stokowski. Well, he was born in London. And his full name was Leopold Anton Stanisław Bolesław Stokowski. Okay, he got a special Oscar, not honorary, but a special, and not technical, special Oscar for Fantasia. This was the first marriage of long, full-length animation with music. Irving Berlin. God Bless America. And won an Oscar for Best Music. He was born in Tołoczyn. In some documents, I'm finding that they say he was born in Mohylev. From what he wrote, actually, it's Tołoczyn. The irony is that there is no documents. So we have to rely on because of the revolutions, World War I, World War II. So we have to rely pretty much on the oral history here to find out. Now we have, nobody knows him, Mac Gordon, born in Warsaw. Pretty soon I'm going to look like him if I keep eating the way I eat. So, for music to film, Hello Frisco, Hello. Here is Billy Wilder. Again, I had the pleasure and honor of knowing him very well, spent a lot of time with him. He was one of the first directors, actually. The anecdote I can tell you is that in July 1968, I arrived to Los Angeles. Then 3 weeks later, Polish government stripped me of the citizenship. I started to look for some inroads to the industry. I met Joseph Leites, who was the greatest Polish director in the between-war period. He introduced me to Billy Wilder, and one day Billy Wilder took us to Friars Club in Los Angeles, and there was a place called Viennese Room. It was wood boiseries, kind of a dark green walls. And who was there at the table? There was Otto Preminger, Fred Zinnemann, Joseph von Sternberg, Fritz Lang in a wheelchair with the one patch, with his hands were so white I could see every vein on it. And Billy, when we walked in, Billy said, he said, you see, this is American cinema. And my English was so poor. And I wanted to say something, so I said, you know, a hitzen parovoz, which in Yiddish means you're giving me such a secret like that it's hot, that it's very hot in the caboose, in the locomotive. And all the guys at the table laughed, so they understood Yiddish. So Billy said, you see how American they are, you know. So, Billy Wilder is considered that I'm not talking about it being a director, because Fred Zinnemann has more Oscars for directing. But in terms of the number of Oscars won, Billy Wilder is a record holder. He has won 7 with Irving Thalberg. This is the top award, okay, given. And he split pretty much best screenplay, best director, best screenplay, best director, best screenplay, best picture, best director. So here he is with his Oscars. Samuel Goldwyn, born in Warsaw. He got 2 honorary Oscars. You see, this is Jean Hersholt Award. This is Thalberg Award. Looks like Oscar. Statuette like any other. Alfred Jung, he was born in Zgorzelec. He was the production designer. He won for Black Narcissus in 1947. Irving Allen was born in Lvov, lived in London. He won for Best Documentary Short, Climbing the Matterhorn. Pretty much totally revolutionized. I mean, if Fred Kaufman, who is now the head of National Geographic, was his father actually used to say that Irving Allen was his idol, his mentor. Here is Franz Waxman, composer, best music for Sunset Boulevard and Place in the Sun, born in Chorzów. All he did, he changed he was born Waxman with a CH, he changed it to X. Louis B. Mayer, born in Minsk Mazowiecki. And there's an interesting history with him in a sense that we will get to Kaper. I'm working on Bronisław Kaper. If you actually Google him, in many places what you're going to see, it's going to come out Minsk, and then it's going to say Belarus. Well, the truth is that it wasn't Belarus. In all the population census, Louis B. Mayer wrote Russia/Poland. When he was born, when he left, Poland didn't exist as a sovereign country. If this would have been a Minsk, now the capital of Belarus, he would have written Belarus. He didn't have to put Poland. But interestingly enough, now that I'm doing research on Kaper, I found a very interesting tidbit that Kaper actually was married to a woman named Eleonora Sirota. And her father, who lived in Warsaw, arranged for Louis B. Mayer's family to leave Poland. And they claim he was from Minsk Mazowiecki, which makes more sense. So here is Dmitry Tyomkin, okay? Very interesting, very great composer. In his paperwork, you can go crazy. Okay, in one he says he was born in Kremenchuk, another one Krzemieniec, and the third one is Krzemienica. Why? Because in Yiddish they all sound exactly the same. But if you look at the map, it's all it's a pre-partition Poland. Bronisław Kaper, who was my dear friend. It was, he won for the best song, best music for Lily. I still remember his telephone number. He's been dead for so many years, 276-5254, because it's a hi Lily, hi Lily, hi Lo. It's just like, that's how I remember this. And Boris Kaufman, he won for best photography, for best cinematography on the waterfront. Now, there's a very interesting tidbit here. How many of you heard about Dziga Wiertow? Of course. Guess what was the name of Dziga Wiertow? He was born in Białystok. His name was Denis Kaufman. Boris Kaufman, Denis Kaufman, which is Dziga Wiertow, and Michael Kaufman. There were three brothers born in Białystok. Two went to Moscow, one went to Hollywood. All three were successful. Sam Spiegel, this guy, he was amazing. I've met him in 1966 when he came to Poland. I was actually sent to, as an intern to when they were doing Knights of General. He spoke every language. I've heard people claiming that they heard him speaking Swahili. He spoke Hungarian, Polish, Russian, Yiddish, German. He was, before he became, today he's considered the most successful producer in a film history. There's only two other producers who won 3 Oscars for Best Picture and Thalberg. The other one is Saul Zaentz. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus. But because it only took 8 years or 9 years for Spiegel and 30 years for Zaentz, Spiegel is considered the top. Now, before he became the best producer, he was one of the biggest crooks that ever lived. He was from every country that he lived in, 5 of them, he was arrested, imprisoned, and deported. But then when you become successful in Hollywood, everything is forgotten. There was a case when he was arrested in the United States, it was 1940s, and seriously, there are documents that CIA had a file on him, and they were debating with the State Department how to deport him. And the only way they could deport him to Poland, because he was always living on a Polish passport, was to parachute him to occupied Poland. And then the army said, it's too risky. We're not going to risk for one idiot, to entire plane. So here's Sonia Levin, born in Pani Munich. Today it's a Kovel, part of Kovel. She was the first woman who won an Oscar as a screenwriter for the originals for Interrupted Melody. Victor Young, very interesting person. He was born in Chicago. So should he be Polish or not? Well, guess what? He was 6 years old because he was a child prodigy. His family, who was with Polish origins, shipped him to Poland. So since he was 6 years old, he lived in Warsaw, studied music in Poland, and he didn't return to Chicago for 20-some years. Spoke fluent Polish, and he won just 1 Oscar, but he was nominated 22 times. So I'm really, my heart goes to him, like many of the people on Monday morning going to wake up who had nominations that didn't win, But he did it 21 times he lost and 1 time he won. Bernard Grzymek, best-length feature documentary, Serengeti Shall Not Die. Well, here you have a little plaque that was in Nyssa, actually, for him. So Poland recognized him, Germany are recognizing him, but Poland right now totally forgot. He's a forgotten man. Eugen Schuftan, born in Wrocław. How many of you wear the glasses that, the change color when you go? It's called Schuftan. It's called Schuftan filter. Okay, he won an Oscar for The Hustler. Here you have a Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason. He was one of the top cinematographers in Hollywood. Here is Stefan Kudelski. Also had the pleasure of knowing him. Passed away not that about 4 years ago, maybe less. He won 4 Oscars. You know, two were technical for inventing, until he came up with Nagra, the recorders were about this size. You need 2 men to carry it, okay? And Kudelski actually was the one who miniaturized it to the point that you can hang it over your neck and go and shoot anywhere. Totally unknown. In Poland, they're not, like he never existed, and he studied in Poland. He was born in Poland. He moved in pretty late in his life. He was already in his pretty late. I shouldn't say it, you know, consider my age. But he was in his 40s when he left Poland. Actually, he moved to Switzerland. Here's the first Polish Oscar according to PISF. That's Zbyszek Rybczyński, who now lives in Arizona, who for short animation Tango. Tadeusz Chrzanowski, another unknown Pole, who was born in Krosno. He now shares his time between Vancouver, Canada, and Krosno, for inventing a new computer system of moving miniatures. So you could do it by computer instead of manually. Great save of time. I had to add him. Jack Palance, born in Pennsylvania. Hey, if Leopold Stokowski is Polish, then I can vouch for Jack Palance. His real name was Walter Palachniuk. This is the film that we've made together, actually. I was producer of that film. He was the lead. He used to speak Polish to me, right on the set, so nobody would understand us. He had this funny singing kind of, I said, you know, where did you learn? I mean, we had one scene that was extremely difficult logistically because we were shooting in a room that was round, the bed was round, and Richard Roundtree, who you might remember from Shaft, was in the bed, and Jack Palance, as a killer, was supposed to kill him. And we couldn't figure out the angles, and we were waiting and waiting. All of a sudden, Jack jumped on the bed and started to sing, you know, jump from and say, dziewczyno, dziewczyno, gdzieś ty chodziłaś po deszczu, nogi pomoczyłaś. I said, where did you learn this? From my mom. So, you know, if we recognize Stokowski, we have to recognize him. If we recognize Polański, we have to recognize him as well. Irving Saraf, born in Łódź. He was best full-length documentary, In the Shadow of the Stars. Here's Alan Starsky, my friend, our colleague. We worked together on The Eminent Domain. Our fathers worked together. Our parents knew each other. We skied together when we were little kids. Best production design for Schindler's List. Here's Eva Braun. She was born in Krakow. She got also for production design, but for set decoration. These are those two categories under production design. Also for Schindler's List. Madam. We work together, like each other, so I can joke. Here's Janusz Kamiński, two-time Oscar winner for constantly working with Spielberg. In Poland, he doesn't exist. They don't count him as a Polish cinematographer. Marceli Wein, born in Krakow. He got in technical for innovation animation of computer technology. Andrzej Wajda, born in Suwałki, for lifetime achievements. We're coming closer and closer to the end. Roman Polanski, born in Paris, living in Paris, Best Picture and 2 Oscars for The Pianist. Jan A.P. Kaczmarek, born in Konin, Best Music, Finding Neverland. Peter Fodakowski, He's born in London, now comes to Poland very often because he's co-producing with Poland. Well, you know, he speaks Polish, he feels Polish, he was born in London. Well, he likes Stokowski. And Paweł Pawlikowski. Hopefully there will be more next week. I doubt it, but listen. And there's some other that showed up, and I could not find anything about it that I suspect could have, they would have some Polish roots, which was Elka Wardenga, Adel Romański, Dawid Malinowski, and John Mancewicz and Stanisław Gorbatov. I don't know. So I'm sure you can't find a lot of Oscar winners in the craft categories. Do not put where they are from, where they were born, where they went to school. There are just 2 sentences. So that's about, It was never even nominated. Was not even nominated. No. So this is how I see this. You know, ever since he won an Oscar, he never he never parts with his sword. And all this stuff you can actually find in those 3 books. The 3rd book I'm just finishing, should come out at the end of the year. So this is all. Now, if you have any questions, anything, I would like to sit down because my leg is killing me.
Any questions?
Very important. You belong to the Friars?
No, you know why not? No. Friar in Polish means stupid. And my grandfather, every time I would walk into the room, he would say, "Ty frajerze, you're stupid." So why would I join a club that, when everybody is friar? So the truth is no. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for a very interesting talk. I just want us to know they're folks films. We'll let you talk to you about. Have you done very much work on films made in full?
Let me think. Well, Polanski shot 2 films in Poland, right? It was Knife in the Water and The Pianist. It was shot in. Kaczmarek has composed music to a lot of Polish films, so he lives and works in Poland. Who else? Who else I can think of? That's about, Piotr Kudakowski is now producing a film in Poland. Poland, look, to be honest, Poland, to work with Poland as a producer, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. I mean, for me as a producer, it is by far cheaper and faster and easier to make a film in Czech Republic, in Bulgaria, in Romania. Poland has no incentive system for production. We go to Poland. I've made 5 films in Poland, feature films, White Dragon, Triumph of the Spirit, Eminent Domain, partially Politics of Cancer, and partially Farewell to My Country. And I go there, and I'm saying this but really we, the producers, we go there if there is a location that we cannot imitate, or it will be too expensive to build somewhere else.
The government does not subsidize the film.
Oh no! Poland is subsidizing the film very much so, but it is what it is. It is such a centralized system. Polish film industry right now runs like a loop, like a train loop, with 3 stops. It's a Polish Film Institute, which has a fund for then television, and then some other funds, some other regional television, regional funds. And the truth is that I've been screaming really for last decade that what we're doing, we are creating we're educating employees, we're educating production managers, but we do not educate, and it's a world phenomenon. I'm not saying Poland is any different than the United States. We don't educate producers, okay, entrepreneurs. These guys that I just showed you, like Mayer, Goldwyn, Warner Brothers, and everything, they were a step ahead of everybody. They were creating new ways of funding films. In Poland right now, there's a system of take from the government. And the tragedy is, we did about 10 years ago, when the first 5 years of existence of Polish Film Institute, what I did at the college, at the university, we did a comparative studies. And we took 7 European cinemas that fund film production. And we noticed an interesting phenomenon. One was that the number of films grew up marginally, literally within statistical error. Like in Poland, went from 40 to 43, the first year of peace existence. The second one was 42, then it dropped. But what happened in all the countries, and I'm talking about France, England, Scandinavia, Italy, Germany, Poland, and so on, in 5 years, the quality of films went down. Because all of a sudden, the films that they were making were not sellable. They just stopped. Now there's a new generation coming up. We see more talented young filmmakers, and they are a little bit more entrepreneurial, so they start getting, again, awards. But there was like 10 years of nothing. Why? Because in original days, the producer, in order to make next film, the previous project had to earn enough money to make the next project. So the quality was of the utmost importance. The moment the government started to fund movies, the producers started to make money off the money that they were getting from the government. So the quality, it didn't matter. It's okay. So if 3 people will come or 3 million come, doesn't matter. When it was actually so ironic that when young Starak produced Bogowie, the film about Religa, it became extremely successful, and he wanted to repay the money he got from the Film Institute. There was no procedure for him to return the money. There was everything on give, and not produce, make more, find new sources. So this is the problem that, why in Poland, I have to tell you, we've spent a lot of time, we tried, and it's impossible to work with. First of all, for some reason, the younger generation doesn't treat time the way we do. And a lot of time gets wasted. I keep telling my students, and we started a new program at the Polish National Film School that we started as a co-venture with our university, which is for the entrepreneurial, for the creative producers, as a postgraduate program. And I keep telling my students, in the United States, when we get to one table, there's really 3 things we can say. Yes, no, fuck off. Okay, and nobody gets hurt. Because you know that the next project could be different. In Poland, everybody says, yes, let's do it, terrific. And then they have to apply for the subsidies. They have to wait. Then the management of the institute is changing. Then the experts are changing. Then this, before we know, everything we build to get to that point, we lose. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's not an easy country to work with. Maybe now it will change because supposedly there is a new law that's supposed to be enacted about the subsidies. Maybe there will be more producers coming in. I'm tired.
You mentioned Nita for the award winner. That is the award winner. Was with Nita and the winner of the...
Yes, 2 of my week. Correct.
Were there any others before Nita's? That one had won major awards, best actor, best actress, or best film.
No, well, I just showed you. There were a lot of them. You know, but are you talking about now, currently, after World War II, from people who? No, it was. No, and even Paweł Pawlikowski. Remember that there is a certain pattern. Paweł left Poland when he was a child. He didn't live in Poland. He went to school in London. He graduated from London Film School. He made his first several films in London. Then he came to Poland. Ida was his first film made in Poland after his return. So he is used to different kind of work, kind of production system, and he's much more entrepreneurial.
Thank you, Professor Krakowski, for a magnificent, fascinating presentation.
Thank you.
Andrzej Krakowski happens to be my favorite Polish author. I understand that his work would be extremely difficult to film in any way, but I was wondering if you happen to know if any of it was put to film in any way, or if not, if there are any interesting documentaries about him.
I know there was at least one documentary made about him, because I believe it was Andrzej Krakowski who did it. Zbigniew Herbert. And I believe Andrzej Krakowski made a documentary about Zbigniew Herbert. I know there was one. I haven't seen it, I'm sorry. I did not see it. So, but there's a database. Very simple. Go on filmpolski.pl, put keywords Zbigniew Herbert and see what comes out. You must remember that I had been out of Poland for 51 years. So my gaps in knowledge, what's happening in Poland, when, how, it's just, I'm fast learner, but not that fast.
Let's help me up. Just two last questions. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Krakowski. I think my question is more of a general one as to why Poland doesn't lay credit to many of these artists. I'm assuming it may be because during the communist era they don't want to associate themselves with the Hollywood regime or anything in that area. But is there a more deeper meaning to that question?
Okay, so look, let's walk it through logically. Let's say that the communists didn't like Hollywood, which is true, by the way. Which is true. I mean, I was there when Kirk Douglas came to Poland in 1966, and he came as a goodwill ambassador of UN, and he was driven by the ambassador for the pre-arranged meeting with Comrade Gomulka. And Comrade Gomulka figured out, why am I going to talk to some idiot, some aktorczyk from Hollywood? And he kept him waiting, and it became almost a diplomatic scandal. And fortunately, there were the dean of our school and the president of the rector of our school, Jerzy Teplic and Jerzy Bosak, happened to be there. So they said, listen, we're going to make it up to you. And in Łódź, at the film school, we got a call at 5 o'clock in the afternoon that next morning, Kirk Douglas is going to come to our school. The entire school got absolutely crazy. And in one night, we built a set, and we shot a movie, and we have it. You can go on YouTube and put Kirk Douglas in Łódź, and it's going to come out. It's about 10 minutes long. And we saved the day. So the truth is, communists didn't, not only the communist regime didn't like Hollywood, communist regime was afraid of intellectuals and artists, generally. It was a very anti-intellectual system. But the communists died in 1989, folks. It's been how many years? 30 now? So why those people have not been brought back or brought up in over these 30 years, I am as fascinated by this as you are. I don't know. I really don't know. I can't figure it out logical explanation.
So the answer isn't in those three books?
Well, you won't find the full answer, but you're going to find a lot of, speculation. I don't know. Look, Poland cherishes Chopin and Maria Curie, and they were great. It was a genius musician. She was a genius scientist. They have, but none of them invented an entire industry. Here we have media industry. If we roll it back, all started within 200 kilometers radius in Poland. And and I've been writing about it, talking about it, but this is like, it's an uncomfortable truth. I don't know why this is so uncomfortable. We have plenty to be proud of, and we're not. And it's better not to talk. I mean, I have look to what degree Poland is self-centered. Like if you get out, like Janusz Kamiński, right? He's not mentioned in Poland very often. But several years ago, we had a Polish student, Bartek Konopka, was nominated for a student Oscar. By the way, the same academy gives student Oscars. Okay, which different days, different rules. The rules, it's actually much more difficult to get a student Oscar because there's like 3 different categories that you get, and every school can apply. I mean, last year there were 1,749 films submitted for a student Oscar. So Polish film was nominated for Polish short. And I remember what was happening here. The consulate was giving, there were parties, dinners, there were headlines in the Polonia press and in Polish press. We didn't win. Well, it ended up being just a nomination. And who won that year? A film produced by my student who happens to be here with us tonight. Piotr Kajstura, right there. Nobody, not a single word was written in Poland about it. Not a single word. And he's as Polish as anyone else. And I remember we actually went to Gdynia. Yes, and I was introducing him to it, and everybody said, "What?" It was like big shock. If you're out of there, you're out of mind, out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind, actually.
What do you attribute that to?
Ignorance, my darling. Ignorance.
Maybe we have the time for the last question.
Yeah, they ask it. So I basically wanted to ask this question that perhaps has no answer. All the names that you have presented, all the people that you have shown us, they all come from Poland. And what is the background of that genius that you could name? If there is something that you could pinpoint, is it in their milk that they were drinking, in the water, or is it in the need to, let's say, create something because of what they have witnessed and couldn't express, being young, obviously, and needy Poland, and just finding the answer, what's, if there's anything in common besides being born in Holland that you could tell or feel?
Well, look, there is a very interesting phenomenon, okay, that the industry was, we have to, it is not an old industry. Probably, the film started in 1895 with the Lumiere brothers. Okay, it was not designed nobody thought about it as an art. Okay, Lumiere brothers created a camera, which, by the way, was another camera was created 2 years before them in Poland by Jan Szczepanik. And at the same time, there were several other inventors, but they happened to start the mass production of those cameras. And they needed a proof that their camera can take 10 frames per second. And they found out they couldn't. There was 8 frames per second. But they ended up with a strip of film. And what do you do with it? You know, so there's a lot of people look at the same things, and one people say, well, tough luck, and the other ones see opportunities. And these people were because of their life, because of what they came from, okay, they had this predisposition, for creativity. Well, look, it's a longer explanation actually. We're talking about the period of the great in American history, the Great Immigration, 1880, 1923, right? 1920. You have 23 million people coming to the United States from all over the world. Why didn't Swedes, Italians? Yeah, but this small group. So something must have been in that region that actually made them sensitive to it. And if you look at it, you'll find it, which is, for example, you have four Warner brothers. Out of 4 Warner brothers, only Jack Warner was born with the name of Warner, and he was born in Canada. Albert, Harry, and who was the third? The 3 out of 4 were born in Krasnościerz, near Warsaw. Okay, but each was registered on a different name. One was von Zal, one was von Skolasser, the third one was von Sker. Why? Where did it come from? Because if you were a Russian Tsar's subject, you went to the army for 4 years. But if you were Jewish, you went for 25 years. The only one who was exempt was the firstborn. So the parents who had 3 sons registered each under different name. Each one of them was firstborn. Okay, so the more draconian rules were imposed on them, the more creative they were in circumventing them. So, one of the famous stories that you can find in my first book was about Goldwyn, for example. Goldwyn, when he came to the States, he was a glove salesman. And in 1913, President, who was the president? Who was it, Hoover? No, Wilson. There was President Wilson, and the Congress lowered the rates for imported gloves. So they killed American industry. The Gloverville, which was the capital of American glove industry, became a ghost town. The companies, the sales companies, and the factories started to close. So everybody was complaining. What did Goldwyn do? He got on a boat. He went to Paris. He bought as many as he could cheap gloves. Then he called the manufacturers and he said, "Now, guys, you have to do something for me. I want left gloves packed separately and right gloves packed separately. I don't want them to packed as pairs." And then he brought everything to one place, divided into 6 shipments, and in 1 week installments, he sent it to 6 different ports in the United States. So Elizabeth, New Jersey got left gloves. A week later, Boston got right gloves. And then he came back and he sat and did nothing for 6 months. And everybody thought that the guy he should go to loony bin. No, he knew what he was doing. Okay, after 6 months, the government came in and they declared the cargo as abandoned. If you have abandoned cargo, there is no owner, nobody to pay customs, to get customs from. But by law, they have to put within 30 days, they had to put this for auction to get back to the storage charges. But who the hell would want to buy just left gloves or just right gloves? The only one who knew what was where was Goldwyn, who was going from town to town, buying at the cent on a dollar his own gloves, bringing back to New York, repacking it and selling. And when everybody else were declaring bankruptcies, he was making a ton of money. Everybody, this is the way they used to think. Everybody looks at the same thing. Some see opportunities, some don't. And this is also, who was emigrating at that time? people in search of jobs. You know, Irish, famine, Spain, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, they were illiterate. If they were educated, they wouldn't leave. They would get jobs in their own countries. Well, guess what? There's no illiterate Jews. Because by the time you're 13, you go for bar mitzvah, you have to know how to read and write. You know, so it might not be the most useful knowledge, but it's a little bit, you already head higher than everybody else. You know, so there's a lot of reasons like this. But the interesting thing, and I will finish, is that the studio system, right, was built by Mayer, by Goldwyn. They were, you know, Litvaks. They were from the Russian, under Russian partition. Who destroyed it? Their colleagues from Galicia, from the Austro-Hungary. Billy Wilder, Otto Preminger, Fred Zinnemann. So, you know, that's what it is. When you have 3 Jews, you have 5 opinions, and you fight.
That's the one.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrzej Krakowski, for your active, informative, and opening presentation. I'm sure that you agree with me that the sign in Wikipedia, which speaks about Polish Oscar winners, needs a really good update. Right now, I invite everyone downstairs for a glass of wine. There will be opportunity to continue discussions. But before you go, we've heard tonight many stories related to the history of the Academy Award. I would like to add up one story. This is the story of this foundation, which was built in 1925 to honor the 150th anniversary of the arrival of Tadeusz Kosciuszko in America. Tadeusz Kosciuszko, this gentleman here, he called for the freedom of the United States and Poland, and this foundation was built as a living memorial to this Polish national hero. We do our best to carry out our mission. Nowadays, on average, $1 million a year is given away, grants, fellowships, scholarships to students, scholars, scientists, artists from both Poland and the United States, because our mission is to spread the tide between the two countries. We are a membership organization, therefore, if you are a member, that's fantastic. Thank you. If not, you are most welcome to join us as a member, and please join us for a glass of wine downstairs. Thank you.
Do you want to talk about the May? On May 21st, we can meet again here, and this time I'm going to be talking about another phenomenon, which is when Pola Negri came to United States in 1922. The American culture, the American art, were run by 5 women, all from Poland. Nobody knows this. So wait until, yes.
Tak, nie bardzo.
Wszyscy patrzą się tutaj na mnie albo na... Nie, na mnie, teraz na mnie. Okej, uwaga. Raz. Dwa. Spokojnie. Nie oddychaj, nie oddychaj, nie oddychaj, nie oddychaj.
Teraz gdzie się patrzy na to?
I teraz uwaga. Wszyscy krzyczą. Hurra! Tak jest.